What happened when an undercover CEO stepped into his own urban gardening company and uncovered corruption right under his nose? Hello, amazing viewers. Today's story takes us inside Greenleaf Urban Co., where Marcus Walker, the ambitious founder and CEO, goes undercover as a lowly groundskeeper to investigate why his once thriving company is crumbling. What he finds is shocking: abuse of power, favoritism, and exploitation, tearing his company apart from the inside. But Marcus's journey is not just about exposing the truth. It's about rebuilding trust and restoring Greenleaf Urban Co.'s true vision. Stay tuned to see how real leadership can make all the difference. Greenleaf Urban Co. had once been celebrated as a pioneer in sustainable landscaping and urban gardening. Founded by Marcus Chen, the company had grown from a single boutique shop into a thriving enterprise with over a dozen locations throughout the state. Its reputation was built on creativity, eco-friendly solutions, and exceptional customer service. But recently, something has gone wrong. Reports of declining productivity, employee dissatisfaction, and poor customer service had begun to surface. Complaints from clients who once praised the company's innovative designs now spoke of unfinished projects, rude staff, and unresponsive management. Marcus couldn't ignore the unsettling pattern. As a hands-on leader who had built Greenleaf Urban Co. from the ground up, he felt increasingly disconnected from his own business. His regional managers provided only polished summaries of operations, touting sales figures and superficial improvements while dismissing deeper issues. Frustrated and doubting the truth of their reports, Marcus decided to investigate matters personally. After all, he hadn't dedicated years of hard work to build a company that neglected its own people. But determined to uncover the real problems, Marcus devised a plan that would take him far from his plush corner office. He would go undercover, stripping away his authority and status to see the company through the eyes of the people who kept it running day by day. What he didn't realize was just how deeply the rot had spread and how much work it would take to save Greenleaf Urban Co. from itself. Marcus Chen had never been one to shy away from a challenge, but going undercover in his own company was something he had never imagined doing. To understand what was truly happening within Greenleaf Urban Co., he knew he needed to blend into the daily grind without the weight of his title looming over the staff. With the help of his trusted assistant, Isabel, Marcus crafted a new identity: Eric Lee, a middle-aged man seeking steady work after relocating to the city. Gone were his tailored suits and polished shoes, replaced by faded cargo pants, scuffed work boots, and a Greenleaf logo cap pulled low over his eyes. His new role? Groundskeeper, one of the most overlooked positions in the company. It was the perfect cover. No one ever paid attention to the guy sweeping leaves or hauling fertilizer bags. The flagship store where Marcus chose to embed himself was located in the heart of the city, surrounded by towering office buildings and upscale residential complexes. Despite its prime location and chic design, the urban garden had been struggling, both financially and in terms of employee morale. As Eric, Marcus reported for his first shift early on a chilly Monday morning, the manager on duty, Vanessa, glanced at him with disinterest before tossing a worn vest his way and barking orders about clearing the front walk of debris. There was no welcome, no introduction, just a curt directive. Marcus immediately noticed the tension in the air. Employees moved with a mixture of fatigue and resignation, their conversations terse and hushed. Vanessa's management style was as cold as the autumn air, her interactions limited to scolding or delegating from the sidelines. The atmosphere was far from the collaborative, passionate environment Marcus had once envisioned for Greenleaf Urban Co. Taking up his rake and shovel, Marcus began his work, but his true task had only just begun. He needed to understand why his employees felt so undervalued and disconnected, and why the company he had poured his soul into now felt like a hollow shell. From his first day as Eric Lee, Marcus could feel the coldness permeating Greenleaf Urban Co.'s flagship store. The sleek, eco-friendly aesthetic was nothing more than a facade masking a workplace burdened by resentment and indifference. As a groundskeeper, Marcus had a front-row seat to the way employees were treated by their superiors. Vanessa, the store manager, ruled with an iron fist, her focus solely on output and appearances rather than employee well-being. Employees like Rosa, a gifted horticulturist with a passion for designing urban green spaces, were dismissed and ridiculed when they offered suggestions to improve workflow or enhance customer experiences. Instead of nurturing talent, Vanessa seemed intent on stifling it. Interactions between staff were no better. Department heads openly competed for Vanessa's approval, often at the expense of their coworkers. Marcus frequently overheard snide remarks and hostile exchanges in the break room. Tim, a young landscaper trying to work his way up in the company, was often criticized for being too eager and accused of making everyone else look bad. Marcus watched as Tim's enthusiasm waned, replaced by a cautious reluctance to draw attention to himself. Worst of all was the way Vanessa played favorites, rewarding compliance over creativity. Employees who dared to challenge her authority found their hours cut or their shifts reassigned without notice. It was a clear message: fall in line or be pushed out. Marcus's frustration grew as he saw the systemic toxicity undermining the very values Greenleaf Urban Co. was supposed to represent. Instead of fostering innovation and sustainability, the flagship store had become a breeding ground for fear and favoritism. As Marcus continued his work, sweeping leaves and hauling supplies, he made sure to listen carefully and take note of every flaw, every injustice. It was becoming clear that this wasn't just a management issue, it was a cultural crisis. Marcus's undercover role at Greenleaf Urban Co. had already exposed him to troubling behavior, but nothing prepared him for the blatant corruption he discovered next. As Eric Lee, he spent his days cleaning the outdoor displays, trimming rooftop gardens, and maintaining the lush, eco-friendly aesthetic that customers admired. Yet while hauling supplies to the storage area one afternoon, Marcus overheard Vanessa and her assistant manager Greg laughing over their recent adjustments to the payroll. Their conversation made it clear Vanessa had been manipulating employee schedules to avoid paying full-time benefits, deliberately capping hours for those who didn't fall in line with her directives. Worse yet, she was fabricating performance issues to justify reduced hours for outspoken staff members like Rosa and Tim. The deeper Marcus dug, the more he uncovered. Vanessa had been using company funds earmarked for sustainable development projects to bolster her own bonuses. She justified this by inflating productivity metrics, falsifying reports that portrayed the store as a shining example of efficiency and innovation. Marcus couldn't believe how brazenly she lied to upper management, knowing her fabricated data would never be questioned. And if an employee tried to complain, their concerns were swiftly buried by Vanessa's false accusations of incompetence or insubordination. The final straw came when Marcus discovered that Vanessa had coerced Greg into altering inventory records to hide product losses resulting from her own reckless spending. Supplies intended for community workshops were redirected to private clients willing to pay a premium for exclusive Greenleaf services. Marcus's hands shook as he documented each violation, knowing that Vanessa's greed had tainted everything his company stood for. The thriving, eco-conscious brand he had built was rotting from within, undermined by a culture of corruption and exploitation. Marcus knew that if he didn't act soon, Greenleaf Urban Co. would be beyond saving. As Marcus continued his undercover work at Greenleaf Urban Co., the harsh reality of Vanessa's management tactics became more evident and more intolerable. One afternoon, while scrubbing the greenhouse walkways, Marcus overheard Vanessa berating Rosa, one of the most dedicated employees he had met. Rosa had been working tirelessly to prepare for an upcoming community sustainability workshop, staying late without pay and using her own resources when company supplies were unavailable. Vanessa, however, seemed less interested in Rosa's hard work and more focused on belittling her efforts. "Your displays look uninspired," Vanessa sneered, arms folded tightly across her chest. "Maybe if you spent less time chatting with customers and more time doing your job, we wouldn't be lagging behind." Rosa's shoulders drooped, her fingers clutching a clipboard as she fought to maintain her composure. But Vanessa didn't stop there. Later that day, Marcus watched as she cornered Tim, a part-time landscaper who often volunteered for additional shifts to help cover for short-staffed periods. When Tim politely requested more hours, Vanessa snapped, accusing him of acting entitled and threatening to reduce his shifts even further. "You're lucky to have a job at all," she spat, her voice dripping with contempt. "Keep your complaints to yourself, or I'll make sure you don't get scheduled at all." Witnessing Vanessa's cruelty firsthand shook Marcus to his core. Rosa and Tim were the very employees Greenleaf Urban Co. was meant to support, hard-working individuals passionate about sustainability and community engagement. Yet their dedication was being punished rather than rewarded. Marcus had built his company to promote positive change, but Vanessa had twisted its mission into a tool of exploitation. Rage and guilt simmered beneath Marcus's calm exterior as he resolved to expose the truth. But first, he needed to gather more evidence and prepare for the battle ahead. It demonstrated determination to dismantle the toxic leadership infecting Greenleaf Urban Co. Marcus knew he needed irrefutable evidence. The company he had built from the ground up deserved better than Vanessa's corrupt oversight. Every day, while continuing his work as the groundskeeper, Marcus discreetly took notes on everything he witnessed: verbal abuse, manipulation of schedules, and the consistent mistreatment of dedicated employees like Rosa and Tim. With his phone discreetly tucked into his work jacket, he recorded snippets of conversations when Vanessa's cruelty reached its peak. It was risky. If Vanessa or her loyalists discovered what he was doing, it could jeopardize his entire plan. But Marcus had made his choice. He also began collecting statements from other employees, carefully noting their grievances and frustrations. Many were too afraid to speak openly, but a few, like Rosa, dared to confide in him when they thought he was just another downtrodden worker with nothing to lose. "It's like she gets off on making people miserable," Rosa admitted one afternoon, her voice low and strained. Tim, too, shared stories of Vanessa's vindictiveness, detailing how his hours had been cut after he tried to address her mistreatment. Marcus's notebook grew thicker with each passing day, filled with damning evidence of Vanessa's incompetence and cruelty. As he pieced together the full extent of her abuse of power, he prepared himself for the inevitable confrontation. The risk of discovery was high, but Marcus knew the reward was greater: a company restored to its original purpose and a team that deserved to be heard. The final blow came when Marcus stumbled upon undeniable proof of theft and deception. While organizing the tool shed late one evening, he overheard Vanessa speaking with Jasper, her right-hand man who handled the company's financial records. Their conversation was laced with smug satisfaction as they reviewed false invoices and doctored sales reports. Marcus's blood boiled as he realized Vanessa had been funneling company funds into personal accounts, hiding her embezzlement under the guise of business expenses. Worse yet, Jasper had been manipulating the company's inventory logs, selling Greenleaf's high-quality plants and materials under the table to private buyers for personal profit. Suspicious of their continued success despite declining public reviews, Marcus delved deeper. When he managed to access an unsecured laptop left open in the office, he found emails between Vanessa and Jasper detailing their scheme. Vanessa had been inflating expenses and authorizing purchases that never reached the company's inventory. Jasper's name appeared repeatedly, rubber-stamping fraudulent records to keep their operation hidden. Marcus couldn't believe the scale of their corruption. The woman he had trusted to manage Greenleaf Urban Co. with integrity had been exploiting the very principles he'd built the company on: sustainability, community, and fairness. Furious but composed, Marcus continued gathering evidence, taking photographs of the incriminating emails and compiling them alongside his own notes and recordings. Vanessa's corruption wasn't just a matter of poor leadership, it was criminal. And yet she had managed to silence everyone beneath her through fear and manipulation. Marcus's resolve hardened. Vanessa's time was up. Armed with concrete evidence of her deception, Marcus prepared to confront her publicly. He wouldn't allow Greenleaf to be exploited any longer. It was time to expose Vanessa's treachery and rebuild the company from the roots up. The day of reckoning arrived with Marcus, more prepared than ever. He had compiled a comprehensive file of evidence against Vanessa and Jasper: emails, altered invoices, surveillance footage, and testimonies from employees who had been coerced into compliance. Marcus chose the weekly staff meeting as the moment to reveal the truth, knowing the presence of witnesses would make it impossible for Vanessa to talk her way out of accountability. As he entered the conference room, his demeanor was calm but resolute. Vanessa's smile was tight, her eyes betraying a hint of suspicion at his unexpected appearance. She hadn't seen him in weeks, believing he had lost interest in the company's day-to-day operations. But she couldn't have been more wrong. Marcus stood before the gathered employees, his gaze sweeping the room before landing squarely on Vanessa. "I've spent the last month undercover working as a groundskeeper," he began, his voice steady. I wanted to see for myself how things were truly operating within Greenleaf. What I discovered was far worse than I imagined. A ripple of murmurs spread across the room, employees exchanging bewildered glances. Vanessa's expression faltered, but she held her ground, her smile thinning to a sneer. Marcus continued, producing a folder thick with documents. I have here indisputable proof of financial fraud, employee mistreatment, and corruption at the highest level. Vanessa, you have been exploiting this company for personal gain, coercing employees into silence, and undermining everything Greenleaf stands for. He detailed the theft, the false invoices, and the systematic abuse of power, his words growing sharper with every revelation. Vanessa's confidence shattered as Marcus displayed email chains and financial discrepancies for everyone to see. Jasper, seated near the back, paled visibly, his hands trembling. But Marcus wasn't done. Greenleaf was built on principles of integrity, sustainability, and community. I trusted you to uphold those values, and instead you twisted them for profit. He turned to the stunned employees. To everyone who has been hurt by this corruption, I apologize. This company is nothing without the people who keep it alive, and I intend to make things right. Vanessa, her face now drained of color, stammered weakly, "This is all a misunderstanding," but Marcus cut her off. "No, Vanessa, this is your reckoning." Security personnel summoned earlier stepped forward to escort Vanessa and Jasper out. As they were led away, Marcus turned back to his employees, prepared to rebuild Greenleaf from the roots up. In the wake of Vanessa and Jasper's dramatic removal, Greenleaf Urban Co. was left in a state of shock and uncertainty. Marcus knew that exposing the corruption was only the first step. The real challenge would be rebuilding trust and restoring the company's core values. Determined to address the wounds inflicted by Vanessa's leadership, Marcus made it his mission to meet with every employee, from interns to department heads, ensuring their voices were heard. He encouraged them to speak openly about their grievances and experiences, promising them safety and confidentiality. What Marcus heard was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Stories of dedication undermined by favoritism, genuine creativity stifled by rigid quotas, and passionate employees forced to work under a constant cloud of fear and manipulation. But beneath the pain, Marcus saw hope. These were people who still cared deeply about Greenleaf's mission, despite everything they had endured. To begin the healing process, Marcus implemented sweeping reforms. He introduced a transparent feedback system where employees could report concerns or suggest improvements without fear of retaliation. Additionally, he restructured the management hierarchy, promoting deserving individuals based on merit and integrity, not convenience or personal loyalty. Luis, the diligent landscaper who had endured harassment, was offered a leadership position overseeing quality control, while Jenna, whose creativity had been repeatedly dismissed, was given the freedom to design new, eco-friendly garden layouts for community projects. Marcus also prioritized education and mental health resources, establishing workshops on leadership, conflict resolution, and stress management. The company's wellness programs were expanded to include free counseling sessions and flexible working hours. His commitment to being present and accessible was unwavering. Marcus spent more time on the ground than in his office, rolling up his sleeves and working alongside his employees to rebuild Greenleaf's foundation. The change was gradual but palpable. Smiles returned, conversations flowed more freely, and the palpable tension that once choked the atmosphere began to lift. Marcus's efforts extended beyond internal reform. Determined to restore the company's public image, he spearheaded a series of community outreach projects aimed at promoting sustainability and supporting local urban development. As Greenleaf's employees embraced the changes, their passion for their work reignited. Clients and investors took notice, drawn not only by the company's revitalized vision, but also by the authenticity Marcus had restored. Rebuilding trust was no easy feat, but for the first time in months, Greenleaf Urban Co. felt alive again, rooted in the principles that had once made it great. With the groundwork for a healthier culture laid, Marcus devoted himself to ensuring the reforms at Greenleaf Urban Co. weren't just a temporary fix but a lasting transformation. Recognizing that systemic change required constant vigilance, he established a committee composed of employees from all levels of the company, responsible for monitoring workplace morale, identifying emerging issues, and suggesting improvements. This group, dubbed the Roots Committee, became a cornerstone of Marcus's vision, ensuring that transparency, fairness, and creativity were actively encouraged rather than passively assumed. Marcus also implemented quarterly town hall meetings, where every employee could openly voice concerns, celebrate successes, and propose new initiatives. These meetings weren't mere formalities, they were platforms for genuine dialogue and collaboration. Beyond internal reforms, Marcus redefined Greenleaf's external mission. To regain the trust of clients and investors alike, he introduced a series of ambitious sustainability projects that showcased Greenleaf's commitment to innovation and ethical leadership. New partnerships were forged with urban development groups dedicated to green architecture, community gardening, and eco-friendly design. Marcus emphasized that profitability and integrity were not mutually exclusive. Greenleaf could thrive as a business precisely because it valued its people and their creativity. Additionally, Marcus invested in leadership training programs designed to cultivate empathy, accountability, and resilience among managers and supervisors. He made it clear that promotions would be based not only on competence, but also on character. The toxic environment Vanessa had fostered was replaced with one of mutual respect and shared purpose. Marcus ensured that the company's core values were reflected in every decision made, from hiring practices to marketing campaigns. He also mandated that the company's ethical standards be publicly accessible, holding both employees and leadership accountable to the highest standards of conduct. The changes Marcus spearheaded took time to bear fruit, but their impact was undeniable. Employee satisfaction and retention rates soared, and Greenleaf's reputation gradually mended as word spread of the company's renewed commitment to integrity and creativity. Investors who had once been skeptical of Marcus's unconventional approach now praised him for his visionary leadership. Sales rebounded, driven by a revitalized workforce that was finally free to innovate and collaborate without fear. For Marcus, the greatest achievement wasn't the improved revenue, it was witnessing a company that had once been fractured come together to create something truly extraordinary. Greenleaf Urban Co. had finally reclaimed its identity, rooted firmly in the principles Marcus had envisioned from the very beginning. With Greenleaf Urban Co. finally back on track, Marcus Walker stood in front of his assembled team during the company's annual conference, the energy in the room electric with optimism. The transformation had been hard-fought and often grueling, but as Marcus gazed into the faces of his employees, now confident, inspired, and empowered, he knew it had all been worth it. Vanessa's influence had been eradicated, replaced by a culture rooted in creativity, respect, and ethical integrity. The Roots Committee had proven invaluable, consistently bringing forward fresh ideas and addressing concerns before they could fester into larger issues. Quarterly town halls had become a highlight, with employees eagerly sharing their successes and participating in planning the company's future. Externally, Greenleaf's reputation had been fully restored. Clients appreciated the renewed focus on sustainable innovation, and investors were impressed by the company's ability to rebound stronger than ever. Marcus's decision to intertwine profitability with ethical practice became a cornerstone of Greenleaf's marketing and operational strategies, drawing positive attention from eco-conscious organizations and industry leaders alike. Looking back on his journey from undercover groundskeeper to hands-on CEO, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had not only salvaged a struggling company, but had also forged something stronger and more authentic. Greenleaf Urban Co. was no longer a business driven by superficial goals or dominated by toxic leadership. It was a thriving community of individuals united by a shared purpose. As Marcus concluded his speech to thunderous applause, he couldn't help but smile. This was only the beginning. With strong roots now firmly in place, Greenleaf Urban Co. was prepared to flourish, creating beauty and sustainability from the ground up. The story of Greenleaf Urban Co. teaches powerful lessons about leadership, integrity, and the importance of staying connected to one's values. Marcus Walker's decision to go undercover as a groundskeeper revealed the extent of corruption and neglect that had poisoned his company. His experience highlights that true leadership requires more than issuing directives from above. It demands humility, empathy, and first-hand understanding of the people who keep the business alive. Marcus learned that fostering a healthy work culture starts with listening and acknowledging the voices of those most affected by poor management. By dismantling the harmful practices of his corrupt COO Vanessa and empowering honest employees to help rebuild the company's integrity, Marcus restored Greenleaf's soul. Furthermore, the story underscores the necessity of continuous improvement. Implementing reforms was only the beginning. Marcus recognized the importance of maintaining vigilance and remaining open to feedback to prevent the company from slipping back into old patterns. His journey illustrates that true growth involves not only fixing immediate problems, but also cultivating an environment where creativity, trust, and ethical practices can thrive. Ultimately, Greenleaf Urban Co.'s revival demonstrates that a company's greatest strength lies in its people and the principles it upholds.